Hello, America, and Judge Napolitano. My name is Anthony Wall. This is the whole truth, nothing but the truth. And truth not used for lies and to screen lies. Because the difference of that originally instilled this breaching method that was entrenched before America's founders were born. They entrenched roles with criminal insidiousness, natures of positive treatments, collusions with the negatives we know that roles were forced with, therefore even more hyper additional causes of bad things from that source that made everyone rolls with those crazy, sickly, distinctly northern colonies and southern colonies. Victimhood slash S A through Z, sickly distinctly from psycho laws, even about what people could say relative to how, if they were found out, they heard someone speaking about building houses and they didn't tell on them if it was outside of an internationally monitored conversation. There are still internationally connected families who leak in a way the breaching method knew they would leak. For example, where leaking is what they went against both President Trump and President Biden for. And in other words, don't forget we have black pupils, whites of eyes, means clearly to discern that other things, others, ourselves, are blamed for things that are nature, that nature itself gave us means it shows us to blame on a breaching method. The one that assigned these conversations and make sure they stay, leaving out how we have black people's right to life and nature communicating with that because they are also the colors they have as the same color eyes. And see what we have that left out with the breaching method too. Through our schools, sickly distinctly from the people reacting different ways because trying to figure out how to react to it. Unnatural things like that. Only natural as criminal insidiousness. Per nature's demonstration of it. If we had free speech of equality, not forced to entertain. In other words, they have readings of statutes that are criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw. And we could demonstrate this if we get them on paper. All the countries involved with the conversations of Judge Napolitano, no, not even addressing with the news is not even addressing. No, and that too, the other countries are addressing bombs and the end of the war is going on between Israel, Palestine, Lebanon. Over here and there, all these countries share roles with all kinds of corruption associated with the overt criminal enterprises, private ones, criminal insidiousness as the three branches of government, as the difference between that or the intelligence tied to them, and how they share hundreds of nations here and there and their families together since before our founders were born. Involved with the difference is racket because they're a certain type of victim slash hyper victim. They had other things, others ourselves communicated for the names of the sciences. Then nature shows us. They communicate. Vaccines. So I can't bring up those names. And the courts have been switching names and refusing to identify themselves legitimately with the police forms involved. Police forms. But it's also a multiple intercities police departments with the same house slash S and names tied to them and the houses next to them. And they're leaking this rather than identify themselves. I've asked Judge Napolitano too many times because Fox Connecticut News is collusions with names next to them involved with this. A whole bunch of names in a whole bunch of ways. Involved with predicate acts with facts, federal evidence is crimes, federal evidence is crimes methods, federal rules of evidence is crimes, rackets. and their roles next to the state capitol. Increasingly, with the family members, concentrated of probate court judges and prosecutors and superior court judges and Connecticut's district court involved with a whole bunch of people out of the state judicial branch offices and out of the state corrections offices, intercities and out of the campuses roles, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions, raw, countries A through Z. They're involved with a difference racket that uses them remotely and shows them to have to defend themselves and their identity like America A through Z. Saudi Arabia. They force Saudi Arabia, the difference between Saudi Arabia's roles, which they attach everyone to faked and changed communications. People from Germany, people from Kuwait, people from Canada, people from Mexico, people from Italy, all involved with Wethersfield police chiefs and people tied to them with New Britain, Connecticut, and West Hartford and the town lines. The roles with the inter-services, criminally foreign influence, tactically delusions raw, and with people with the community center involved with a whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital involved planting evidence on all sides of my house, and with this house name and people with this name Cololo involved. Increasingly with retired police chiefs, a police chief Cintron and people tied to him, planting evidences and sequences shifts, including people with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, his co-defendants and their lawyer, and places next to his lawyer's office, people associated with that. Before the World Trade Center attack, in that context and since, they have roles with foreign and domestic military, with predicate acts with people from and with criminally foreign influence used to the ground location /S. They know are plausible. At least that's true, but they don't know the extent of it. They have roles with the leaders of the kids and people associated with and as mayors and their family members and their communications and use roles with use /S of name and of thought and reason. These are also tactically delusions wrought, identities and defenses of descriptions of what caused things like slavery as collusions yet. Including how as counters, because that is used remotely too. This is differences racket. In other words, we don't leave out what nature communicates with black and white the way no one else could imitate. Because it also shows us there are other species with eyes too, distinctly from our own, but also simultaneously non-distinctly. And then as what is further hyper simultaneously, not this or that, but both anyway. We are showing there's a distinct identity of simultaneous nature. It is the same one that has us all, knowing that everyone else too knows to an extent. Grouped realities, truth that were true, things that were true always about the past. And to an extent, right now, at the same time, they know to an extent what is true always. And to an extent, you know about the value of the seasons. You know about the value of the ground, the earth, its identity relationship to itself, and the value of that. In other words, the Native Americans couldn't fathom it could get any worse. How we have been systems tactically ulterior from the hyper native one. Both the course of chief / Native Americans and president / citizens, that which is hyper-traditionally one way. In other words, there's the difference between president / chief is part cipher because everyone's words were measured and maintained. They had to leave to be declassified after their deaths. What we're supposed to communicate about our founders behind James Madison and his plan, and how they went and got George Washington to agree to use that plan. and to counter extort the other four founders to force them to have no means to save themselves from the crazy, crazy laws, fact-nature, torture, extortion, slavery method, but to rely on our founders' plan to force them to get said that we should get the Constitution unabridged, to force them to get said that we should get free speech, we should get Marbury versus Madison. Real justice must satisfy all appearances of real justice. This is why we need not only free speech of a quality capable of not leaving out how other names are increasingly involved with the conversations with the people we're going to be around that where we're going to be timed, measured at locations. We have been spied on the difference between through our own and foreign, and their motivations of it has to do with assignments and uses self-valued of differences rackets, where it is self-valued with syntax. It is also relative because the courts and the police have forms together, distinctly grouped and together, and with interbranch families and foreign and intelligence tied to them overt criminal enterprises with the same ones. We're going to observe this. And all these countries shared here and there. One of the things that concentrates them is timed use /S of Two-Mile Highway and Hangdog Lane, and confessions about people made about years before the World Trade Center attack that became more and more relevant. The rules with relative people collusion with former director of the FBI Robert Luskin, all sides of criminal and civil cases, people with the name Scalora, and a whole bunch of people tied to them at Wethersfield Pizza, involved with wire crimes with the Wethersfield police, refusing to identify themselves, and fabricating phone transcripts with people that work with the agencies that have the family, extended family members of the judges of the probate families, like one's named Spada and Scalora. I mean Spada and DeMoro, and increasingly involved with intercity and with people's with the boxing gyms, involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, other natures of federal evidences rackets, with people on the corrections offices and judicial branch offices, with town lines and with along roads and routes, planting roles with U/S of the live progressions from their roles with predicate acts with facts and databases on and off campuses, and all sides of criminal and civil cases as collusions at the same time, the courts and the police forms and their sources, and the whole bunch more, and the difference of it, the news at the same time. WFSB attached me to fake conversations with themselves and with other as recorded proofs of roles with recorded other ways to manifest mixed natures of distinct natures of organized crime with the little kids and uses of it between the campuses, whiting forensics as judges and doctors and legal people and state police recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved further with the Southstein Middle School and others and other campuses and names next to them, involved with drugs and medicines crimes, and roles with federal evidences crimes, with overt criminal enterprises, private ones, and through time, and people next to the campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and predicate acts with facts, identity racketeering too, with the religious spots. And this is recorded also relative, people want to have this simple conversation without going into details, and they're going to be dishonest about the details. I asked you to get them on paper, one name and sequence. Before the World Trade Center attack, I recorded a Dean Judd, his family members, and people with foreign and domestic military were planting evidences and criminally foreign influence use of location /S with people that were made confessions about that years ago, like Ray Collo, Joe DeMoro, and a Sabi Bajero and a Jeremy Grohl. They have roles with spots next to the state corrections offices and next to 3 spots at the end of the Burnham Turnpike through time. There have been all kinds of cases through time where they've been increasingly all sides of cases in sometimes the courts, and their family members have been covering up their roles that are actually with use of locations. People with the name Oliveri. There's a Craig Oliveri and Eric Oliveri. I never had a word of conversation with Craig Oliveri. And there's a Joshua Stryker involved with them at Trinity College with predicate acts, with identity theft, fraud, slanders between campuses, and with teachers I had behind my back, with the courts, judges, and prosecutors, also with the foreign criminal enterprises involved, and the people on wire crimes on my street tied to them, and people with Hartford Hospital next to them is one of the things that connects them. A whole bunch of people at Hartford Hospital, like Eric Jensen, is also recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with people like a Mr. Abruzzi, was my fifth grade teacher. He's involved with teachers I didn't have, and kids that were not in my classes who were in parallel with, involved with all kinds of natures of organized crime, identity thefts and fraud, slanders, fake motivations for it. Increasingly with various natures of federal criminals before that was proven. They had collusions with that. And then they got brought up again when the principal child defender got brought up. And there were more leaders of the kids involved with that. And there were more courts family members involved with it. There's a Brian Silver, and there are more people that Whiting Forensics recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed involved with it. They didn't let me read the police report either. Bob Chase said that there's a Phil Cololo involved with it, and that has been demonstrated to me too non-verbally since. I saw him walk going on the sideways with a verb swerving on a bike, also tied to one of the kids there were rape threats about the day forced not told on. These are also people with a Leahy family and uses of pictures of their kids and other kids' kids, and the difference of that because they have collusions with it. And they have sustained predicate acts with facts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and hurting the kids. They do know with their kids and others growing up. In other words, they're putting fake things in databases. Has something to do with their roles with the corner of a street of the principal child defender and their roles with names next to it and next to the campuses involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, planting evidences with the Wethersfield police wire crimes, switching names, roles of gun crimes and bug spray and other natures of organized crime with the people involved with them, intercities. They make confessions on my street with people involved in intercities on, off, and between the campuses. And I was living temporary next to CCSU when I was taking classes at Trinity College. Before I went to either campus, the Ray Cololo and Tim O'Brien already recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed. Sometimes they're the ones criminally foreign influence with as a family plotting together, or sometimes it's the foreign families associated with them. In other words, the only reason I'm bringing this up now is because they keep coming involved with my business intercities. No, I tried to let it go when I was in grammar school. There's a former Mayor Gold increasingly involved with predicate acts on my street from other locations. And it has something to do with their roles with the park in the past, trying to paint fake exceptions of ties to me. No, we didn't have words. There's a Danielle Perron, and we're involved with Kevin Caron, Kevin and Mark Caron. I don't even know where they live. I know the general area that said they live. Involved with a whole bunch of people at Central Connecticut State University with the intelligence community. Involved intercities. That's in New Britain, Connecticut. Involved with spots along the South Stein Highway. These are also people involved with the O'Brien, Cololo, with Sandy Hook, with more federal evidence as predators and medical predators, foreign and domestic, of kids. They've been putting fake things on, and these are ones on off the state corrections offices too, and know how that's on a town line. And the people involved with the spots next to it have roles with the extended family members of the house near me involved with the Saudis. They know, in other words, even though it was my previous wife that the Scalora family has roles with home break-ins. I never told her that. People associate with a Joe DeMoro. And in other words, there's something to do with also with the Luigi Guerrera and their roles intercities with the intelligence community, all along roads and routes like Main Street and Harper, Connecticut, next to Fox Connecticut News. Their investigators involved with planting evidences, collusions, where and how this breaching method uses remotely and already used remotely. The differences between their guilt with it, with its roles with it, or the courts, or the police forms, or their sources, or in other words, or the people next to the tied body dumping spots, and murders and untimely deaths that were all brought up at once intercity. It's a lot, but I didn't bring it up. And that's also high evidence because, like the Robert Rodriguez is one of the ones who brought up the principal child abusers campus. Now, these police have federal evidences, crimes fabricating and changing what's digitally recorded. And with the courts and the difference between the courts, and these are the ones switching and forging names. There are proofs that it's one of the ones that has kids are one of the ones switching names with the name McGee, associated with Rocky Hill schools, and with the BB that was placed like a threat to me with the people with the Millwoods Park through time, and the parks and recreation. They have rules with drugs and medicines crimes with the kids, with foreign and domestic medical doctors, and judges speaking fake things in records and delusions raw at the same time. That's why I'm having to ask Judge Napolitano, because the news does not follow mandated law, and the people that tell them how to read the law, they're still criminally foreign influence. The Trantonal is one of the ones criminally foreign influence with the syntax, distinctly with the people, with the ad placements too. I don't know if that ILO, there's an ILO associated with a Joe ILO and his father and his sisters. They're involved with fire departments next and spots and names next to the John Gallucci, Johnny Duke has roles with the people with the prisons, involved with the crimes at the crime scenes, and with the courts, judges, and prosecutors, all sides of criminal and civil cases involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, and differences rackets. They have two female judges. They have a black female judge and a white female judge recorded involved with Facebook also, with the Joshua Julian and his neighbors, with medical and sexual offenders of kids, including black KKK themed and Confederate flag themed. Mark Violet is one of his neighbors involved, also at Hartford Hospital, also with Eric Jensen and his neighbors, also involved with and as the co-defendants, a former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, Thaddeus Grabowski, Dominic Lebriata, his neighbors, also increasingly involved with drugs and medicines crimes with the extended family members of probate court judges. I don't know the one on Knott Street and Walker Hill that pretend to know me, with the officer Chris White too, and people associated with through the years, intercities with Ray Reynolds and people associated with him, and Kevin Harris and his mother and this Leahy family involved with medical corruption with the campuses, putting predicate acts with facts, fake ties and fake natures of ties between the kids. Also has timed collusions with a whole bunch of other countries. There are people from Pakistan, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved with the corner of Town Line Drive and Southstein Highway. There's a Dominic Abate, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed as one of the workers of I forgot the name of the place again. One of the businesses, but it was through businesses. And then that business itself is involved with my neighbor's past and the ones currently involved with the Wethersfield police confessions. And they're trying to make it look like people have differences between each other. That's why the same ones through the year They planted in positions on the sides of their houses too. That's also recorded if you pay attention. And these are people increasingly tied to a Kevin Dillon and to a guy who said he was his partner, who's recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed by other people. I never got a conversation. We said it to my speech class. The second time I was in a speech class. The year before that, that woman is increasingly involved with students and teachers involved with medical corruption. She was a doctor. I never had a personal conversation with her. She has roles all along Route 175 with the intelligence community, with identity theft, fraud, slanders. So Eric Jensen and those with those two Justin Klavinskis and those Coron brothers, and they try to make things and have people repeat things to make it look like things. They make fake sides of issues, and they confess that because they're demonstrating, they communicate that they're being influenced to act, be fake people. These are not legitimate police forms relative to their roles with identity theft, fraud, slanders, fake ties, fake natures of ties to me, collusions, and with the names that they're hiding as the ones in the news. These are also Russians involved with and the neighbors of, I don't even know their names, increasingly, and their roles with their educators as the ones with the name Perón. I never had a class with a Danielle Perón. A whole bunch of people, boyfriends of a Danielle Perón, and people associated with Thomas Perón and his family members are involved criminally, foreign influence, tactically, delusions wrought with people next to Fox Connecticut News that are increasingly involved planting evidences intercities. It has something to do with their roles with the corner of Town Line Drive, with the Kerr family also. And I believe that might be the owner of that business there. I don't know the name of it. And there's an officer, Jerry Miller, who recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed planting evidences on the north side of my house with a Jerry Kerr. There was more than one Jerry Kerr associated also with that. And they have the corner of Church Street in Old Weathersfield. They have multiple people associated with the corners of Church Street in Old Weathersfield who have roles with predicate acts with facts with those people I never had classes with. And they try to make fake exceptions. They are recorded doing that and with the judges and prosecutors through time. And they're lying about their motivations because of what came first before that. That's why and how they have roles with such, again, with the principal child defender before, as Rolls forced it. These are people involved too with the fire departments, with Inspector Mike, and involved roles with the police switching and forging names and refusing to give me a police report to respond to since I was a kid, and making fake exceptions and putting arrays of falsified police reports, fake things in databases. This has been going on since before computers. That's why it's also relative to their uses of the founding locations and how they have concentrated roles with UConn, Trinity College, and CCSU with the confessions of the strangers that were all from other areas that all have inclusion, that they pretend that I knew them with the other people around me. Then make it look like we're a group. And that's recorded too, various ways, including them pretending other offensively. So extortion is recorded, but this is positive because this shows torture, extortion, and the slavery method. These are people with next to the campuses in Hartford too. Ugh. So, in other words, you had certain type of victim / hyper victim incapable of speaking properly regarding the questions that nature asks us to ask about American history, about world history. Vaccines. I teach us things, but laws. So we have to get Judge Napolitano to follow mandated law. We need to get them eventually to follow mandated law. Connecticut to branch. They can respond to any one of those things since I was a kid, and I'll show you. But start with the last one because I want a response for the confessions of the principal child defender, which were also confirmations, and the rest of the things tied to the Robert Rodriguez. There's a Mike Roberts who communicated that the place associated with a Robert Rodriguez, those places near the exits of the highway, like in Rocky Hill, and also a Rick Cianpaglione has roles with the scuba diving. There were scuba diving ads recently by Fox Connecticut News, and there's stories with the fire departments before the fire with the guy reportedly named Sharky, because that name was also repeated by the people with this, but by the people there was a place they said was named Sharky still next to the state capitol is involved with planting evidences with a whole bunch of people there. And these are people that Anthony Agnew confessed also. He's confessed, recorded, demonstrated, confirmed rules with foreign and domestic military medical families who have been stacking fake things in databases with as some of the people tied to them who had collusions with those names he brought up, like those doctors. They have roles of violence on my street with names on my street from as their roles with the spots, like the Weathersfield Library is involved with people that are involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders, with their doctors, and with the Hartford Hospital's Institute of Living has a whole bunch of people tied to the name tomorrow, the names tomorrow, and the names next to the buildings, and the ones with the name Cololo involved with the police forging and switching names. And these ones who pretended, there's ones with the name Leahy who pretended through the mail they had conversations with me. And people have been acting on those faked information. They have roles with prosecutors and judges of various natures of courts, personally and professionally, criminally involved with them with that. Judge Napolitano, please. They have their Facebook page of New Britain Superior Court with the FBI, involved also with people on all sides of the criminal and civil cases and the depositions associated with Robert Luskin, former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and his co-defendants, Thaddeus Grabowski, for example, with Fox Connecticut News, right before a 2006 district court case, recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed collusions with his lawyer spots tied and people tied to him, and this Eric Mendez, who's one of the and his brother, who is switching names and pretends it's cultural, and Allison Mulcahy, and ones with the name Domain, and ones with the name CM Faglione, involved with judges and prosecutors with criminally foreign influence uses of that spot, and people with the name Kerr too, and Perone. They went to the St. Anthony School there. I don't know if they were sued or something because they were child abused, but they have roles with judges and prosecutors and victims advocates who had collusions with the abuses of the kids. Because they are also involved with the uses of location / S criminally foreign influence and those next to the state capitol and next to the communications locations. The difference between that, there are people with the name Peruta and who is involved with a lawyer of the Weathersfield police who have readings of statutes that give the benefit of the doubt at the last second, to people with based on their title, etc. At the last second. That's why they're offensively ignoring people and making more things up. They have criminally foreign influence readings of statutes, a whole bunch of other ways discernible too, because a certain type of victim was backed into those booths, to be judges. And they told how to do it as predicate acts with facts, methods, needs, natures of collusions with the crime scenes of the worst natures from there. Sometimes the worse than the people they're putting away for it. Increasingly, the families associated with the prisons need to hide life progressions from those spots right back to other ones, like their campuses, like the names next to them. They have problems with the borders because there has been differences, rackets. They have kept blamed on other things, others themselves. Why and how really? There's negative value nature progressions, acts and natures in the cities. The suburbs were designed only capable of causing it. and not realizing because of being a theater and having needs normalized to need means and things from other locations and people. This breaching method made countries A through Z needing that. Tactical terror, nature needs to communicate other. In other words, with its elements, with our communication, with the way it communicates about positive and negative. Because it's not just the ways we have grouped, individually grouped and together simultaneously. It also has an identity of relativity to positive and negative, further hyper simultaneously, if we pay attention properly. But that quality of fact treatment nature as being has been offensively forbid. The people of our campuses will come together right through the fake relationships, the natures of relationships. I don't even know the kid's name. A whole bunch of people tied to a Chet Casper and to a Casper family and a Robert Heimgartner have roles with the World Trade Center attack. Not him personally, but people involved with a former Mayor Gold and his roles with conversations with one of the teachers further involved with WTNH, with predicate acts on and off and next to the campuses and at corners of the street. As roles with Russians with that too, since I was a kid. Because that's the difference of that. Like ones with the name Peruta. I don't know, they sought me out to make fake exception and demonstration of it, and I did not respond. In other words, as their roles with World Trade Center attack predicate acts and uses remotely of America's identity, Russia's, and Saudis, as ones with WFSB and their roles with public television also. They have roles with names on the state judicial branches and corrections offices, involved also with the news, with child defenders, leaders of the kids force, and they have roles next to at the corners of the street of the principal child defenders campus through time, were brought up in the confessions they affected. Not just themselves though, there were a whole bunch of other countries and roles with this. There's differences, rackets. They're knowing that people can't speak when they don't know their names. There's names rackets, and they're making fake exceptions like with little magic tricks. There's some kind of a letter written into my third grade teacher, whatever, a Debbie Gold and her father, a former mayor. They've been putting fake things in sequence ships. Increasingly, they've been planting evidences with people tied to a Joe Aiello, involved with home break-ins in my area, per Joe DeMoro and his girlfriend he shared, per them with a Mike Kerr and other people. Heather Hansen. She's one of the ones recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed, involved at Central Connecticut State University with the various departments and names involved, intercities through time, with child offenders, leaders of kids in Wethersfield tied to intelligence with Central Connecticut State University. The same families have roles with UConn and with Quinnipiac University and with Trinity College. And with the names next to those campuses have connections to each other. And they've been exploited through time. In other words, they've been putting fake transcripts and faked and changed recorded reality on a mass scale. That's why how they say so stupid. Americans, we know this. We know there's a theater but we're like shocking out. People call it politics and they look away because waiting for real. Yeah. So in other words, there's a detective Samuda involved switching names and falsified police reports and roles with Officer Magnanos. This was at Central Connecticut State University. He's one of the East Hartford intelligence families involved with East Hartford police and East Hartford families. There's ones with the name Scalora involved with all kinds of natures of abuses of elderly kids and veterans people, per the police that brought their names into their confessions, and they're forging and switching names. and their roles with the Robert Rodriguez confessions about untimely death rolls. Even if he brought that up, he's one of the ones on off Trinity College with my previous neighbors with the untimely deaths there too. Even if that was made up, they have roles with digital crimes and other evidences crimes in a fake letter there, and with people involved with the borders and the differences of those overt criminal enterprises, private ones. They also have Los Solitos per themselves, involved even on Facebook, involved with the Weathersfield police, and names like Fred Grise, a whole bunch of people tied to a Fred Grise, and names next to Trinity College, involved with the house on my street, and their extended, people associated with them from other areas, as the military police involved, identity theft, fraud, slanders, lying to the people who tell them not to lie to them, too. And sometimes, like with this Justa Klavinskis, I don't even know his brother's name. These are also people involved with criminally foreign influence uses of corners of streets near me, and their roles with identity thefts and frauds and lies behind to my educators behind my back and the leaders of the kids. Also, as the ones involved with the Joshua Stryker, he forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded women since they were little girls to make things up about people they don't even know, make fake exceptions. And he did that with a Dean Alford, and they're refusing to get on paper with the judges and prosecutors and their family members involved, and some murders, even if they're made up. You have to keep saying even if they're made up, because the news is constantly, increasingly making things up relative to needs to hide things, relative to where they need to pretend integrity, but they can't be integrity because A through Z, they have no integrity together. All natures, all appearances of other are in demonstration of the same. But you guys need to follow mandated law to have that discerned. I can't write to the other countries. In other words, because there is a hyper additional name, even if it's not just to name the identity of the negative value nature progression and blame that. Because a lot of ways when you discern how nature itself shows us a human fact sheet nature breaching method was and is one of the things true always that slavery was about. Excuse me. You can discern the other things others ourselves are blamed where and how nature itself and our founders communicated for us to blame it on the breaching method /S because everyone was the roles with it, and / because everyone was the nature as that because that's forced by nature itself and by those laws. So that's why we have to pay attention to the breaching method as a scientific value, because it was also sickly non-distinctly against everyone, which the breaching method keeps positive to itself as means to measure and maintain that left out, but people speaking for integrity anyway. Vaccines, I teach us things, but alone. So please, Judge Napolitano, get me a response on paper. I want one name. I want them on paper. Once you get on paper, you're going to see a whole bunch of people with the Connecticut Weathersfield Community Center and the Parks and Recreation have roles of a whole bunch of nature's drugs and medicines crimes and delusions. I'm going to delineate from your sources and including the Marines involved, intercities. They should fear God now. To hide and plot. I'll wrap a lot.